Good evening, everyone. So I'm Michael Thurlow, Football Development Manager at Oxfordshire FA. First of all, just welcome you all on tonight's call. So hopefully you'll find this evening's session useful and very beneficial. So just welcome deliverers for this evening is Martin Dighton, Coach Development Officer, Vinny, Halsall and Lawrence Locke. Thank you for your time this evening on a Sunday evening. Hopefully you find this evening's useful. Do you want to just move it on, Vinny? Just a bit of housekeeping, just before we get started. First of all, just please ensure your microphones are turned off, and also cameras. I think everyone's cameras are turned off currently, just in terms of the meeting quality. It's really important that this evening's sessions is as interactive as possible. So please make use of the raise hand function, which you'll hopefully be able to see, and please raise your hand and we'll try to answer any questions that you have throughout. And you can also use the chat function as well, when throughout the session I'm sure Martin, Vinny and Lawrence will ask any questions, so please submit them through the chat box. Tonight's session will be it's being recorded, and we will share it with you. We're going to be sharing this evening's session and also the session that was delivered on the 1st, and we'll be uploading that onto our YouTube channel. So we'll certainly let you know when that's shared, and you can then share it with your networks as well. Just a point is this evening's session is not providing any specific COVID information, so please continue to use the government guidelines and also the FA guidelines that you have to find on the Oxfordshire FA website. So yeah, it's just an important point to make before we get started. I hope you enjoy this evening's session, and I'm going to be here throughout the call as well to get involved.
Brilliant. Thanks, Mike. Good evening, everyone. Great to, not be able to see you, but we know that you're in the room. So I'm Vinny Halsall, as Mike's referenced, from the FAP team. And in the background, we've got Martin and Loz. And we're going to get going. We're going to jump straight in. Very mindful that it's Sunday evening, but this was deliberate timing because we were hoping that people would have had some match day action today or yesterday. Obviously, if it was today, then hopefully you've now dried out. If it was yesterday, then you had quite a nice day for it. So here we go. We understand there's possibly 60-70% of you who joined us 2 weeks ago, and we shared with you 6 top tips around creating a really positive environment as we all return to play after lockdown 2. So what I'd like you to do, just as you're scanning through them, and those of you who are new to our double series tonight, just have a little browse. But certainly those of you who are returning, anything in the chat box, all yours, get busy in terms of things that you've tried. And as you're doing that, I'm just going to share with you one example. So for those of you who don't know me and weren't here before, as well as working for the FA, I'm also a volunteer grassroots coach here in Banbury in North Oxfordshire for Easington Sports. And one of the things that myself and a couple of my coaching colleagues have been doing is particularly focusing on connection beats correction. So top left there. And what's that look like? Basically, as our boys have been arriving into the session, under 12 age group, we have about 24 of them. We've had little areas set up for them to start working in threes, just very, very relaxed, a little bit of passing and moving. But the caveat to that has been very, very simply, the boys have most of them actually, have just started secondary school, year 7. They couldn't be with another 2 who were from the same school. So we were hoping that we had 3 boys, all from different schools, either secondary, year 7 or top end primary. And then simply on the call of change, they had to go and find another area. And essentially the boys recognised very quickly that we were just getting them to connect with each other and rebond, as one of the boys said. And we were going around just having very, very informal chats, not even about football, about house school, house stuff. A couple of Spurs fans in the group, so obviously they're getting very excited. So that's how we tried to bring the connection beats correction to life. So over to you. If you'd like to volunteer something, we have got Sean. We'll keep you on the back burner for now because your story is an excellent one. But chaps, have we got anybody else in the chat box who'd like to share an example of how they might have brought one of those 6 top tips to life?
Vinny, I think people are warming up at the minute because the chat box is a little quiet, so people are maybe sort of just loosening up, ready to go crazy in the chat box. So I'll jump in with an example from yesterday. I went to see a coach. Went to see a coach yesterday. I turned up. He's got under 11s it was. I said, "Oh, okay. What's the plan for today?" And he said, "Well, I want to do all games." And he was really unsure about that, as though I wasn't going to sort of agree. And I just went, "Fantastic, absolutely." So for an hour and a half, they played games. The biggest stoppage in the whole session was 3 minutes, just over 3 minutes, and that including the drinks break. At no point were they waiting for their turn. They were all engaged for the whole session, and the 9 under 11s had an absolute tremendous time. Now, it was pretty cold down on the south coast yesterday. The kids finished the session in t-shirt and shorts. Brilliant. They hardly rested for an hour and a half. They had a great time. The noise coming out of the session, the excitement of what they were doing. He had that real sweet spot of competition where they were battling against each other, but in an appropriate way. And he even finished it off with a little game scenario where it was, what was it? It was 0-0. And if it stayed that way, both teams were relegated. So the last 5 minutes was an absolute, carnage, but in a good way. So we look at that: no laps, no lines, no lectures. He absolutely brought that to life. I was so pleased with him yesterday. So there's maybe another example.
I love that, mate. If I can just chip in before we go with Adam. What you said there, Mart, is superb, isn't it? And that little idea of if at the end they're sweaty and smiley, then we must have done something right.
Yeah.
So brilliant. So did you say Adam?
Yeah, Adam's just talked on there about going into match situations in the last 2 sessions. Use the silent rule as well. That'd be interesting. And then finish off the drills once the energy had burned off. Wow. Adam, delighted you're going straight into games. I'd even go further and go, what about game at the beginning and at the start? Can you imagine what they think of you as a coach for playing 2 games, not just one? So you could go even further with that. Richard's put one in there as well. Also looking to use games to engage, but been trying to use praise. Richard, do you want to give us a bit more of that? Would you be okay to unmute yourself and tell us what you mean?
Yeah, that's fine. I just put that in there really because just having had a break and a period of time away from matches and training, a lot of the boys just making mistakes just naturally because they're not warmed up and not back into it. So rather than trying to allow people, picking up on some things that have gone wrong, just to encourage a bit of praise, and then it just sets the right tone for the session that all the boys are, quite happy to make mistakes and just focusing on the good stuff.
Brilliant. We're going to talk quite a bit about sort of coaching behaviours today, and we know that kids copy us, that we are role models. So if they see you constantly on the positive side of things and offering every opportunity to say well done, that's going to spread. That'll spread like wildfire amongst your team. What a great example to set.
Yeah, that's a real good quote that I've heard before, is catch them being good rather than
catch them in. Yeah, another way of putting it.
And catch them in, don't catch them out.
Yeah.
Just one thing about the games bit. So I run a just play session for dads, and one of the things that the dads love is we start at 7 o'clock and we're straight into the game. And one of the things that we do, and this is typical in five-a-side football, is that we rotate the goalkeepers. So it's not always the same person in goal, and we have a 5-minute time limit for each player. The other one that we do is we keep the score, and that really, really brings out competition. And even with 40-year-old men, the average age, the intensity of that Friday night football is immense. So just one thing, when you are playing games with the kids, just keeping the score really, really develops that psychological barrier around them, really trying to concentrate and really wanting to win, and winning in the right way, and which links to what we're going to look at later on tonight.
Loz, I want to come and join in one of your dad's games. I'll have to get over to Reading one the Friday night, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm waiting for you, Vinny.
All right, good lad. Guys, we had a little bit of a preamble chat prior to getting going at 7. So Sean Lambourne, a good friend and coaching colleague of mine over in Hook Norton, Sean, are you happy to mic up and share your brilliant example before we wrap this piece up?
Yeah, no problem, Vinny. So one of the things that stuck with me was connection beats correction, and I think you made a point of how useful you make your journey home with Oliver from training. It's probably something that I don't have used in the past. I walk home with my son, so it's a really good time. But I've noticed in the past sort of few weeks, he's pointed out other parents praising him and how good it makes him feel and how confident it makes him feel. So we obviously met last Tuesday. So the Wednesday night training, I got all the parents together while the kids were having their 15-minute game at the end. I said, would you all be happy to take on another child for this weekend in terms of you've got to deliver them praise during the game? It won't be your child, and I'll try and do it that it's probably someone that you don't necessarily know that well. They won't go to your same school as your child, not necessarily live in the same village. On the basis of that external positivity will have a double boost, and everyone engaged with it, everyone signed into it, and it worked brilliantly. It just brought everyone closer together. At the end of the game, I gave each player a Mars bar and just said, go and give that to X, who was their randomly assigned parent. They didn't know it. But it worked brilliantly in terms of the confidence shown from the players, the way everyone enjoyed it. It was just brilliant. And I won't go into the score because that doesn't matter, but we've never had more than 4 goal scorers in a game. We had 9 goal scorers from a squad of 12 in that game. It was just incredible.
Superb. Thanks, Sean. I love that. And, that's what these sessions are about, guys. So if you've not got involved so far, just come on in the chat box or open up your mic. And, myself and Sean have known each other for a while, so I'm not surprised that he's picked up one of these examples and run with it. And if Oliver was under 10s, Lammy, I'd love him to be in your session, and not least because I'd get a Mars bar at the end. Fabulous. Okay, this slide was designed just to be a recap and a link. So recapping from last time and linking into this time. And actually, Sean, there's stuff about engaging with parents later on, which I'm sure you'll like as well. The previous presentation has been shared with you, and those 6 top tips have a little bit more detail in them. So, chaps, are you happy for us to jump on unless there's anything golden in the chat box that we just need to visit?
Another good example from Gilly, I'd just point people towards to have a look at the chat around using challenges through games. Another great example. But no, let's move on to match day, shall we?
Brilliant. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to pass over to Martin, and we're going to just dive down that rabbit hole of managing your match day. So, Martin, all yours.
Thanks, Vinny. So there's 6 examples. I just googled managers on the touchline the other day, and these are 6 examples that came up and I quite liked. So you've got top left, you've got a certain Liverpool manager sort of enthusiastically encouraging the cop. We've got different ones around Mourinho doing his famous knee slide. He's done a few of those over the years. And it just brought us the reason for these pictures where we see these interesting, I'm going to call them interesting, behaviours most weekends. You've only got to drop in a match of the day, Sky Sports News or whatever, and you will see behaviours from these coaches at the top of their games. There's Emma Hayes there as an example in the middle. So the bit I want to get at is how much of this translates to what we do. So questions that spring to mind would be, how many of you have got a budget of several £100 million? How many of you have got the ability to do transfers and wheel and deal and bring people in and out of your teams? How many of you get a chat from the chairman at the start of the season, or chairperson, sorry, where they get a little tap on the shoulder and say, look, it's Europe or you're gone? And also, how many of you get threatened with the sack several times through the season in the front pages of the newspapers? It isn't us, is it? This is not our world. So the behaviours we see on the TV and are discussed at length on the radio and social media do not apply to what we do. What sort of behaviours do we need to show on the side of the pitch? So I remember a few years ago, a parent coming and grabbing me at the end of the game, who was a parent of our team, who was unhappy that I'd spent the whole second half sat on a football, and asked why I hadn't been coaching. I said, no, I have been coaching. I've been coaching all season. That's why I can now sit on a football for the second half of the game and just let him go. Vinny, I know you quite fancy a sit down during games. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely, mate. I take my camping chair. Most of my conversation is with the substitutes, obviously rolling subs. You know, if we're mid-game, then it might be boys who just come off. So we're talking about what's gone well. Tell me, what are you pleased about so far? Very little input to the players on the pitch. Might be the occasional question. But yeah, I love sitting in my camping chair, mate. And I too have had some parents question why I'm not shouting and bawling from the sideline.
I think we get caught up with expectations sometimes. So we do. We almost feel pressure, don't we? We feel those eyes burning in the back of our head that we have to display certain behaviours. I suppose this is a good opportunity to remind you that your absolute number one priority is the players on the pitch. It's the children. It's not the pressure you might be getting from the adults around the pitch. And I know that's easier to say than do. I think we also got to remember that the behaviours we display on the pitch will get copied or dwelt on by those on the pitch. So what comes across if I can't stand still? So I've every grassroots game I've done for years, I've deliberately put technical areas down. I said to the other coach, no, we do technical areas here, so you need to stay in yours and I'll stay in mine. Referee, just so you know, we do technical areas here. And it becomes a non-negotiable. It stops that one marching up and down the sideline, gradually digging a trench. Just little things like what is getting perceived if we can't control our behaviour on the sideline, if we need to jump up and down and crowd surf as the one in the bottom left. I'm not sure if anybody's crowd surfed in grassroots football, but yeah, Loz, how do you feel about that? Would that be fair that behaviours need to be different from that end of the game to our end of the game?
Yeah, 100%. And also, if you're calm, relaxed, you know, creating a really nice environment for your children during the week, and then as soon as you get to a game and, you know, the results might not be going your way, you might not get the right decisions at times, and you completely change. That then goes down to kind of your own manners and your own philosophy as a coach. So, you know, the environment that you create always relates back to training. And at the same time, if you can't control yourself as a coach, it's really, really hard for then the kids to relate to you when you go back to training. Because if they're, you know, behaving and you're doing well and you're all smiley, nice, but then soon as something goes against you and then you completely change, it's really sending different messages to the kids, because they will not know how to act around you. And again, going back to that making mistakes, they might be afraid to do that as well. I've seen kids, you know, fall out of love of football because of the coach. You know, they're not able to make mistakes, and you know that really has an impact on that child long term as well.
I think I did this the last couple of seasons. I've worked with an under 18 college football program on the side, and it's a performance environment. It's by no means elite. It's no means that win at all costs, but it is a performance. The idea is to compete and to improve and to try and win. So as part of my sort of work, I videoed most of the games, and in one particular, I deliberately put the camera opposite me so I could video the game, but it was also videoing me. And I found it quite difficult to watch. I thought I was really calm on the sideline, and I am vocally. You don't hardly hear a peep from me. But my body language at times said something different. Even at times, so somebody misses a really easy chance, and it's just that little turn, that little look away. Now, I don't know how much the players notice, but if they do notice, I want to make sure my body language is perfect. So just, I dare some of you, if you're going to video anything, video yourself and see what you look like on a match day. Do you come across as you thought you did? If you can't video, virtually every smartphone has got like a dictaphone app now. Audio notes, hit record, put it in your pocket, forget about it. And later on, listen back to the things you say and how often you sigh. Would be interesting as well. So there's ways that you can look at yourself as a coach on a match day, and that's where we're going to go tonight. So we've got 6 scenarios we're going to take you through. They are scenarios we've experienced along the way of our journey, and we're going to just sort of float them out there, have a chat about them. If you've got any opinions or thoughts, wick them in the chat box, and we'll get you involved for sure. So you're going to kick us off for that first one, Vinny?
Yes, just before I do, mate, I just love Ancelotti's.
Yeah, I love that look.
Glare at Zidane. I must admit, I think I've done that glare so many times on the grassroots sideline, as if to say to the person next door, "Oh, be quiet, will you?" Anyway, let's dive in. Here we go, guys. The first scenario is leading up to match day. So my question to you is, I hope you're all looking at the screen because it took me ages to do this. Is your head ever doing that? Is your head spinning at the end of a long working week? It's Friday night, or if you're playing on Sunday, it's Saturday. You've had quite a relaxing Saturday, and then you're thinking, oh, I've got a game tomorrow. got so many things to do. Just in the chat box, if it's a yes, just yes, that's me. Yeah, I'll be in there. And I was actually there this Saturday morning, 8 o'clock. Everything was sorted, ready to roll. Got a message from one of my parents saying, one of the boys can't make it today. My son can't make it. We've got a potential COVID case in the house. It just happened to be that that lad's older brother was going to be our young referee, so he couldn't come. And Dad was also going to be the assistant referee. So my head was spinning Saturday morning. So we all operate in that space now and again, don't we? What I've just put on the screen there, that little phrase, I really love it. It's not one that I created. I've borrowed it from somewhere. I won't say where because I'm going to reference that at the end of this slide. So that's our scenario. Leading up to match day. How do you get your parents involved, or do you leave them on the bench? I think we need to work together with our parents. Sean, you've just given a great example about training. I'm just going to talk through some of the things that I try. They don't always work, but I do try them because I believe parents are a crucial part of the team. There's a little mantra, that is one of mine. For those of you who know me well, you know that I like a one-liner. So the 4 Ps there. So here we go. I'm just going to give you 3 examples. I'm just going to talk through them. Feel free to chuck anything in the chat box that you want to. I really think it's important that with our parents, our communication is clear. It aligns to our club philosophy in terms of what you want from them, and also about their role on match day. Now, for me, that's something that communication starts pre-season, and we know it's been a very, very unusual year. So perhaps this could be something, if you didn't manage to get it done at the end of August, maybe you can do it in January. Maybe you can arrange a Zoom call if you think there's anything in here that you think is of value. But what is the parent's role other than just stood behind the respect barrier on match day? So this is what I do. And I'm never saying, guys, at any point that this is a panacea. This doesn't solve all ills, but some of these things work really well. So I do assign match day tasks. And I've put there the 5 Ps. Here we go, another Vinny mantra. Proper preparation promotes positive performance. Now, by performance, I'm not talking about the performance of the players on the pitch. That'll look after itself as far as I'm concerned. I'm talking about the whole environment, the whole match day environment. So do you spend time pre-match day setting up your goals, moving your goals, currently sanitizing your goals, setting up your respect barrier, taking the respect barrier down at the end, organising refreshments? Maybe it's your partner who takes charge of the refreshments, and sometimes having to be the assistant official, as the coach yesterday from the opposing team with me had to be because he was on his own. He didn't have any parents who do that. All of that set against following the many, many extra challenges of COVID compliance. But what I do, I actually have a spreadsheet. And again, for those of you who know me well, I am a bit OCD on things. But that spreadsheet basically, leading up to the game, maybe on a Wednesday, Thursday, parents just drop me a message to say what job they are happy to take up on a Saturday. And I must admit, I've got an absolutely fabulous group of parents. So it works really smoothly. How else do I involve them? I involve them specifically in the footy piece, and I've put 3 eyes there. I inform them of what the match day focus is, and more often than not, that links to what we did in practice during the week. I involve them in player challenges. Sean gave the example in terms of looking at another child. I tend to do it whereby the parent is aware of their son's personal challenge. And I include them in the team talk. So, for example, my parents yesterday, they did a one-to-one with their child around their individual challenge. And at half-time, we grabbed our drinks and we went back over to our parents, and the parents carried on that one-to-one in terms of how their child was doing. In a moment, once we go to the chat box, I'm going to pop in what was my whiteboard yesterday, just to give you a little bit of a flavour of something that myself and my coaching colleagues are working around at the minute. So there's a few ways in which I try to promote positive parental participation. And a lot of the time it works really well. So if you look top left, that head spinning for me often turns into that, where match day for me is such a positive experience, hence why I'm able to sit in my chair. By the way, for those of you who don't know me, I've been coaching for 30 years, so I recognise that I'm not your typical grassroots coach. It's been part of my profession for that amount of time, so all I've done is called on my experience to hopefully create a really positive environment. And then finally for me, that mantra at the top about parents, are they part of your team or do you leave them on the bench? There's a really nice link. I hope you enjoy this when you have an opportunity. It's called Working with Parents in Sport. There's a chap called Gordon McClelland who set up this organisation a few years ago. Happens to be a PE teacher, which is my former profession. So we've got we're singing from the same hymn sheet. And there's a nice blog there, which is where I got that title from. So enjoy that link. And I certainly make use of some of the ideas on there. So I'm just going to pause there. Appreciate there's now lots of information on the screen. Chaps, anything in the chat box or anything that you'd like to pick up from there or ask a question?
It's all quiet in the chat box again, Ben. People are blown away by your snazzy PowerPoint skills. That must be it. I think just try and bring to life some of it. So yeah, I'm a big believer over the years of the more you involve, the more you can affect, the more you can control. So I can think back to previous years of, we talk about making sure the children have a challenge of some sort. I remember printing them off on little bit slips of paper, giving each child their challenge before the game, and then saying, right, go and show your mum and dad. So they'd run off, and similar to what you said, Vinny, they'd have that discussion with parents. They then came back and went to give it back to me. No, you've got to hold it for the game. The goalkeeper was less than impressed, but we worked out we could just tuck it in his sock. The reason I wanted them to hold it was two things. One, if it's something tangible, they're going to remember it and they're going to keep referring to it. But more importantly, I wanted parents to see all these little white slips flapping around as a reminder that that's what your child is working on today, not the other 20 million things that you're going to talk about. Yeah. I think over the years, I've probably learned and gained experience that actually giving kids the challenge right before the game might not be the best way to do it either. Yeah. So, and it's been through more of a discussion with parents rather than this is what you're doing, tough, which is probably how I did it a few years ago. But that certainly had an effect. I remember parents deliberately saying that, yeah, that kept me on track today. Obviously, every week after that, they expected the same, which brought a bit more admin for me, but it was worth it because it had the effect.
Yeah, the bit that really resonates for me is the middle one, Vinny, around assigning tasks for parents. Because like everyone on here working in grassroots, you've got to do everything. Yeah, I think that list, you could probably add another 10 things on there.
Absolutely.
So, like you said, it's having that, you know, the buy-in from the parents is important, but also having a bit of a rotation system with the parents, just so it's not the same one doing everything all the time. And that really gets the buy-in from them in the end, because they've played a part in the team, and yeah. Again, that's really important in involving the parents. And sometimes it might take time. So, you know, Vinny, you've been working with the same kids for a period of time. So
yeah, 4 years now, mate. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, if you went to a new set of parents and gone, there's 15 tasks that need doing before every game, they might go, well, you know, hang on. So it's again dripping those messages in like you would with your players. So don't do wholesale changes overnight. It's dripping, you know, little tasks in there each week, and over time you might get more people coming on and helping you in the long run, because your job is to do the coaching, and if you can get more people on your side to help with, you know, the things just to stop your head from spinning, that's really important as well.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And I think that's a really wise bit of advice there, Loz, which I sometimes forget. You know, I've been with my parents now for 4 years. Some of them I actually used to teach and coach when they were youngsters. So there's a really good relationship there, a very respectful relationship. Rich, are you still with us? Because I know that Rich Meadows, who's a coaching colleague of mine, when we first met, when I was actually still teaching and a mentor, an FA mentor, I remember having a conversation with Rich about pre-match setup, and how I know that that's moved on for him as well.
Yeah, if you want me to come in, you're right. You obviously have set this up, and it works well for you. we do try with our parents from both squads, really, don't we? And it just is a relentless routine that you've got to establish for parents as well, to set those expectations. And I would say that you certainly have it a lot easier now, because you've established those expectations earlier on. So the only thing I'd say for any coaches, I don't know who we've got in the group, but if you've got younger ones, particularly you, Sean, with yours, I know you talked about trying to get some of your parents involved, and I think the sooner you can get that in, the better, because it doesn't have to make your life easier as they move through into teenage years.
Fantastic. Yeah. I think when you get older, Rich, it's involving the players. You know, when they get to 14, 15, 16, remember the kids I used to work with, you know, make them help carry stuff in, make them set up the pitch, make them set up the respect barrier. And again, it's just that social side around, you know, commitment to the team, but also responsibility as adults that they might take into, you know, as they get older. So that's really important as well. Guys,
we just had a great comment in the chat from John, who we should, I suppose, be open with to say is our boss, but he's joined us tonight as a grassroots coach. Just putting an example there about how do we link to what I said earlier about when coaches watch the Premier League managers, how do they behave? How do parents watch Premier League games and recognise that watching their kids' games is a completely different entity and expectations are different? How do we help them recognise that? Is that where we share what success looks like and what we believe success to be? I think we've got to look at our own behaviours as well. The one time we lose control on the sideline, we've opened the floodgates. So we have to be cleaner than clean. And yeah, another point there from John about what effect does league tables start to have on that too? I know in some parts we play 2 games on a day, one that's scores are noted and one that's supposedly development. I don't see what the difference is. It doesn't matter. It's just kids playing football in 2 games. It's again us adults that maybe get a little bit caught up with it over and above what it really should be. I'm cautious that we're starting to veer on to match day behaviours. So should we move on a slide, and Loz, you're going to tee us up for the arrival on match day?
Yeah, Vinny.
Mark's going to just mention in the chat box, I've just put that is genuinely my whiteboard from yesterday's game. And so those initials alongside the ABC are the initials of my players, and they were the challenges that they'd agreed with their parents that they were trying to achieve. So if anybody wants to drill a bit deeper on that, please get in touch, and I'm happy to share with you what it was intended to do and how it went. But that is genuinely from yesterday.
Vinny, I can't see that, so I'm not sure if others can't as well. Maybe we can stick it in later on. If not,
I know, mate.
All right. Let's move us on to the next one. Loz, let's get us on to match day.
There you go.
Right. So again, we're going to try and take you through a bit of a scenario from you. You know, you've done a really great prep. So the stuff that Vinny's just talked about, you've got your parents on board, but even when you get to the day of your game, your players have arrived at different times, but for some reason the pitch still needs setting up. So maybe the team before haven't finished on time, and you've got players that have arrived, and you know your head's starting to spin now. So again, I'm just going to throw this to Vinny and Martin. So what strategies have you got to now share, just for the coaches who are in the room around? You've got there, you've done as much prep as you can, but like you said, things happen and you've got to deal with it. So, you know, what strategies have you got now to help the coaches in the room? I'll come to you, Martin, first.
So I don't mean to be flippant, but it's get the balls out as quickly as possible. Now, that's easier said than done sometimes, facility dependent, especially with COVID rules and AstroTurfs and having to be really clear on who's going on when. But really, it's get balls out really quickly. We talk about arrival activities for training. Why not have them for match day too? There's a team I've worked with in the past that we had a set, this is what we do when we get there. So a little bit of planning and a little bit of habit making early on in the season means the rest of the season's plain sailing when we arrive at games. When we can't get on pitches, it's find some grass somewhere as the next port of call. If you can't do that, the final one is make use of your whiteboard. So it might be a little arrival activity on there that's around social. So it might be a little challenge. Can you go and find somebody who plays the guitar, somebody who knows a magic trick, and somebody who can tell you a joke? And it gets them interacting really quickly. And one more that springs to mind is actually depending on what the players are like and what they need and where they're at motivation-wise, is you might have a little tactical problem on there, a little something for them to solve and get their heads together and try and work out. So today we're going to be playing against the midfield three. What things might we need to be aware of, and something like that. So there's a variety there in what you do, but the short for me is get the balls out as quick as possible, get them active, get them busy, get them smiling, get them interacting. Vinny, anything different?
No, absolutely the same, mate. And I think the extra layer I'll add on there is that I try and make my arrival activity the same as it was from Tuesday night practice. So the youngsters know exactly how it works, so they can just crack on. The area's set up, and minimal setup, by the way. You know, chuck a few cones down, if that at all, and off they go, doing maybe that little group of three activity or a 2v1, but it'll be from what we did on Tuesday night.
Yeah, and it's really important. So, you know, I think a lot of people can resonate with this, where, you know, you're training at 8 o'clock on a Tuesday night, but the team that's on before don't get off on time, and it's usually you're trying to keep them off. So again, it's no different to if it happens on a game day. You know, the arrival activities that you do, just get the kids going with those activities if you can. I think the point that Martin says, just go and find some grass that's safe, is important, and get the kids, you know, either moving around, passing the ball around if you can, just any way to engage them when they arrive. And I think that's really, really important for your kids. Vinny, over to you.
Okay, Brill. Thanks, Loz. Anything? In fact, I'm trying to multitask here and not particularly doing well. So that image should now be in the chat box. Yeah,
it was there, mate.
Yeah, we've had a little bit of stuff from Jilly referenced the previous slide. And what's Gary saying in there? Would it be good to maybe have attendees inform what they do prior to letting them know your ideas? Okay, that's just reference in terms of what we're up to at the minute. Yeah. So, okay, we'll jump on. Thanks for that point, Gary. We'll bear that in mind next time. Okay, here we go. We're into our first half. So match day, first half. Have a little read through. And as you're reading through, again, feel free to volunteer what your strategies might be or might have been, because you might have had this situation happen, to effectively deal with this this scenario. And as you're maybe popping something into the chat box, does anybody remember this event from about 2 years ago? Losmar, do you recall it?
Certainly do. It made national news.
It did make national news. So for those of you maybe not informed, Los, can you remember what statements were made in the press about the dad?
I know I'm being recorded, so don't quote me on this. But I remember, I don't know which I just saw it, and it called him Super Dad.
Yes.
Which at the point I was like, actually, coming from a parent as well, I'm not sure what was super about that. Maybe Absolutely. The push, but I think it was far from being super.
Jack's coined the term. Jack's called him pushy parent. That's the winning headline, that is.
Oh, brilliant. Well done, Jack. Love that. Love that. So for those of you who might not have seen it before, they're just 3 stills. Essentially, so my scenario that I've posted there clearly happened. There was a dad instructing his child, 7, 8 years of age, perhaps. Clearly, the young boy was looking at dad and talking to dad, engaging with dad, being a good lad. And then dad saw a shot come in, so the middle picture, and dad chose to push his son in the path of the ball. And his son, bless him, I find that third picture quite horrendous, to be honest. And his son actually saved the ball. So moving away from that, what would your strategies be, guys, in the chat box? That's the situation you got. You got a parent from the opposition who is behind the goal shouting instructions.
As a couple starting to type, so we'll go quiet for a minute before we give any of our thoughts.
And if anyone wants to volunteer with a hand up to come into the chat, you're more than welcome, guys. This is a Sunday evening chat for everyone. Anything, Mark?
Yeah, so Sean's just put around a designing a spectator area. again, a bit like, I suppose, the technical area I said for coaches earlier, about actually saying, right, this is where the spectators go. Yeah. This is where you go here. This is how it works here.
Brilliant.
I think that's a big bit that we can use around with parents. Like, this is the rules here. You might have seen stuff, you might have heard stuff, you might do stuff other places, but here, this is how it works.
I think that's really important, Martin, because if you can combat that before it even gets to that point.
Yeah.
So even before that parent goes and stands there, and I've seen it many times where it's usually the goalkeeper's dad or, you know, someone from the goalkeeper's family which stands near enough behind that and coaches from behind. And if you can set those rules and have those, you know, regulations with both teams. So when you're setting up and you're going to see the coach at the start, just to say, look, all the parents from both teams need to be on in this area. So even before that parent gets behind that goal, he or she's not even there. So that's really important. So that's a real key strategy around. That goes back to the planning at the start of the game. You know, so you're not even in this situation.
I think Chris has just put a really good point in there, that we've got to allow this to be dealt with in the right way first. It's really quickly the jump to like phase 4 and kick off and you, and actually we just need to speak to the referee and go, look, can we sort that out, please, if it happens during. But the biggest thing is prepare. So I would like to have a conversation with the other coach at the start of the game. Go, look, my parents are a pretty good bunch. This is how we do things here. If there's any issues, how are we going to go about dealing with it? But the biggest thing I want to sort of remind everybody, because I think we all know this, we sometimes forget about it as grassroots coaches. It becomes us versus them. The parent is only doing what they think is right, what they think is the best thing for their child. That parent on the pitch, believe it or not, thinks he's helping.
Yeah.
So the biggest bit we've got to do is educate, and that comes back to what we've talked about earlier about doing things before the season, but then not forgetting about it, constantly revisiting, constantly reminding. You know, most teams have a WhatsApp group now. Little reminders going on there is not a bad thing to do. Little things around when you have discussions with the kids, doing them around the parents, so the parents start to learn from you about how things work. Now, I'm also well aware that's really easy for me to say when I've got 3 lines on my top. And a bit like Vinny alluded to earlier, when you've got 30 years experience and it's been part of your profession, I am trying to empathise what that might be like to be a grassroots coach that's emerged from a group of parents. I imagine that's 100 times harder. So I do try and empathise with that. But for me, it's recognising they're trying to do the right thing and trying to get ahead of the game early.
Absolutely. And Jack's put in the chat box here. Great comment, Jack. Really fascinating angle. Of course, when it's your team playing away from home, this is less easy to manage because you are at the behest of the opposition coach or coaches. My top tip on that, and this is something I try to do, not successfully every week, but I actually try and have a phone call with the opposition coach midweek. So we will always, obviously, there will be league rules to say you've got to communicate with the opposition in terms of kickoff, time, venue, etc., etc. Currently, we need to circulate our risk assessments, don't we, around COVID. So I try and have a conversation with the coach about, the FA respect program. Do you use a respect barrier, etc., etc. So that would be my top tip, Jack. But you're spot on. When you're away from home, if those conversations hadn't happened before and this happens out the blue, it becomes a tougher one to deal with. Okay.
Half time. Whistle's just gone.
Indeed. Time for a breather. Is there anything else in the chat box at the minute, Mark? Loz or Mike, anything from you at the moment?
No, not for now.
No, nothing from me.
Cool. Okay. Half time. Is this you, Loz?
Yeah. So again, just gone to half time. So that pushy parent, we've dealt with him. He's now watching from his car. The referee's just blown. You're 2-0 up. So. But the opposition are on top, so you're luckily at 2-0. But what's your team talk going to look like? Because your players haven't played well. Vinny.
My team talk is led by the players, and often it's linked to what I've referenced earlier, mate, in terms of their individual challenges for the day. But something that examples of things I've done, I've already mentioned the one this Saturday. It was actually the boys going over and having a one-to-one with their parents, linked to the what was on the whiteboard. Another one I've done is once the players, the boys, the children have had a quick drink, getting them in a circle, and the ball is the power. If they have the ball with their feet, they've got the power. So they're the only person who can talk. We used to do it ball in hand, but with COVID, it meant sanitizing the ball every time it got passed. Oh, no. So we now do ball of feet. Only done it a couple of times, to be honest, but it works nicely. And so if, let's say, our son Oliver's got the ball, he might want to make an observation about what he's done or generally the performance. Somebody else will pop the hand up and Oliver will pass the ball nicely across the circle for that other person to talk. So the ball is the power.
Brilliant. Martin?
Yeah, a couple of things spring to mind. So very much along Vinny's lines of the players are in control of it. I mean, they're the ones that have played the game, not me. So they're the ones that have got the better experiences. I've just watched. I haven't felt it. Don't know what it's like to be out there. So there's no good me taking over. So the things that I've done in the past. So with that under 18 college side I talked about, we would break into units and it would vary week on week. But in real simple terms, the more defensive players, the midfield players and the attacking players to do some little work together. And then they'd sort of feed back to each other along the lines of, if I'm the forward, I've got some feedback from the midfield players that would help me do my job better. So there was a bit of sort of cross-pollination. The disability team I mentioned last week when we were on, we used to rotate it around who led the half-time. And literally a player would lead half-time. I would just stand in the background and let them do it. We had to have some rules around that, obviously, just to keep it appropriate. But that worked really nicely and gave some really good leadership opportunities for some. Biggest thing for me is it depends what they say, not us. Yeah, Vinny, great point. Yeah, we still don't want lectures, do we?
No, and I think that's really key that, you know, we talk about keeping communication important, but at the same time, if you give them too much information, so some of your players might have played for 20, 25 minutes and they just want a bit of a rest and allow them to reflect on their own. Sometimes I've done team talks where I'm not going to speak and just let them have 2 minutes on their own. And then, like Martin said, where you've got leaders that you've got that can come in and discuss, that's really important as well, because, you know, as soon as they cross the line, it's them doing it, not you. You can only facilitate and make sure the environment's correct for them.
I think if you are going to give them some more complex information or some tactical information, use something visual to help them. Their heart rate is sky high. Their brain is going into emotional overload where it's starting to work out what it needs to notice and what it doesn't. Listening is one of the first things that goes. So we wonder why the kids don't listen to us. So get something visual, whether that's cones on the floor, whiteboard, using the players as like a mini table football pitch, something like that, within social distancing rules, obviously. Do something different. Don't just get them around you and talk them to death, because nothing will change. However, we're going to move to the second half, and whatever you did do at half time has been miraculous, because go on, Vinny, flip it over.
Just before I do, Mart, a nice comment from Rich in the chat box, just saying, and I do know that Richard's a teacher, so his experience is coming in here, just revisiting what might have been your 1 or 2 key points for the game and keeping the conversation focused on them. So, yeah, nice point, Rich. Love that. Well done. Second half, here we go. What's happened? This pains me, this slide, but I'll go with it anyway.
So whatever you did at halftime worked. You're now 7-2 up. Now what do you do? So in the chat, what are you thinking? What's coming to mind? You're 7-2 up. So there's probably a good chunk of you that's quite happy. But now what are you starting to think about? So just give them a chance now. Loz, Vinny, what things jump to your head? You've gone 7-2 up in a grassroots game of football.
Go on, Loz.
Yeah, I'd start thinking about the power play now. Again, speaking to the opposition and the opposition manager and saying, look, what can we do to try and even the score? You know, would you like to put a player on just to try and even the game up a bit if possible? Because, yeah, winning 7-2 at that level that we can see on there is probably great for them. But for the players that I coach, that you know, we work with on this chat, we probably don't want to see that, because we want healthy competition. Because for me, winning 7-2 at grassroots, I'm not sure what development it's going to give to the team winning, but also for the team that's not winning.
Yeah, brilliant. And just, Lars, that was going to be my same point around the power play. Guys, just in the chat box, yes or no, do you know what the power play is? We've got somebody popping in there about is power play permitted above under 11 if Oppo agree. Sorry, I've only got initials next to DS, but thank you for that one. And I've actually got a real example. It happened, we play under 12s, and I knew that the opposition, because obviously we've now got results published in league tables, I knew that they'd been on the end of some hefty results. I also happen to know the coach quite well. And so we talked about the power play beforehand, as I say, under 12 age group. Sure enough, the game did go to 4-0 and we operated the power play. They actually brought on an extra player. We actually did go 6 goals ahead at one point, and I gave them the option of bringing on another player. So it would have been 11v9. They declined on that one, but it worked well. The scoreline stayed sensible with use of the power play at under 12s because we agreed it. The coach did comment to me that I was the only male coach, he was very keen to point out, male coach who was prepared to not allow the scoreline to get silly. And I just encourage you to have that conversation midweek with the coach. I've referenced this before. Try and have that conversation with your opposing coach during the week. I know we're all busy, but you can just bring up these sort of things and see if you're on the same page. So thank you for that that little input about can it be used under 11s? Yes, it can. It can be under 11s. Agree with the opposition coach. Quite a few yeses. Jilly said no about awareness of the power play. So it's just as I've explained there, Jilly, that if the scoreline goes to 4-0, the opposition can, in agreement between the coaches, bring on another player. It's designed to not take players off the pitch, i.e. detract from game time.
We'll get the screenshots of the laws in the mini soccer laws that we can stick on the chat so people can see it to explain it. I think, Mike, I won't put you on the spot, but obviously leagues across Oxfordshire, whether they've embraced it formally or not, I think we've got to. So I've got an example of a coach who used it and then got fined by the league, fined 30 quid by the league for trying to even up a kid's game of football. I supported him in his polite refusal to pay, because what is our number one responsibility on match day as the adult in charge of a group of children is to make sure they have a really positive experience and want to come back. That doesn't include just our team. That includes everybody present. So we have a remit of making sure they come away having a great experience of football. Do what you have to do to make that right. Now, the other thing I've seen is when a coach has offered it to another coach and they took it as a slight on them and their team. Now, you can't control that. That's probably a different argument. But you've done the right thing in your own mind and in your own world of trying to make sure that all the children have a positive experience. Talking of positive experience, we've got one more slide to look at. So the full-time whistle goes and you think it's all over. Well, it's not, because things carry on. So there's a couple of things we just wanted to sort of bring to your attention. Of course, it's 8 o'clock and thank you for sticking with us. We're a little behind tonight. So what do you do to make sure that they leave as happy as they arrived? So, Loz, going to come to you first. What jumps to mind? How do you make sure they leave happy as Larry?
Yeah, it's again giving them some real positives to go away with. So going back to the 6 key things that we showed on week 1 is giving them 2 stars. So really 2 positive things that the players have done well in the game today, and just one thing that we're going to work on at training, whether it be linked to their individual challenges or something about that they want to work on themselves. So again, it's making sure that whatever the score is, they've got some positive, win, lose or draw, and then win, lose or draw something that they can go away and go, actually, next week at training, we're going to go and work on this. And just making sure that when you see them the next time, you talk about it at training or the next time you see them. So that's really important. It's that they go away with that feeling of they've done something well today, because I think what tends to happen, the drive home, it's usually about the score. But if we can get something about their own individual performance, whether it be a really good pass they did or, a shot that or a save that the goalkeeper made, really give them a highlight that they can go away with and go, actually, oh, that was really good today.
Yeah,
that's a great one, Loz.
Brill. And there's a really strong one from Sean in the group about asking individual players to go and chat with another player and tell them 2 things. So, Loz, you referenced 2 stars, 2 things that you've done well today. Another strategy I use, we have a a ×2 man of the match. And that's those man of the match. When we started our season, I brought the sweets week 1. And then after that, both man of the matches bring the sweets for the following week. And when the boys come and collect the sweets, at the minute they're spread out on the floor, either one of the other boys needs to say what that child has done. So we just call them up in numbered order. Or that child themselves, yesterday, it was their turn to say, I think I've done this really well. So our ABC Meerkat 3 theme, I'm not going to dive down that rabbit hole now, but they might say, I've done the A for awareness really well today, I think. And off they go. So again, no lectures. Over to you, youngsters. Tell us how you think you've done. Let's finish with a big smile on our face.
That's great, Vinny. The two I want to sort of bring out, we did some work around the DNA in the foundation phase, and we had a little experiment with a few grassroots teams. So one of them was game finished, full time, referee disappears, collects the money and disappears. Parents sort of start to wander away. We called both teams in and said, right, we're going to play a third half. And they looked at us so we were a bit weird because they'd worked out you can't have 3 halves. We said, no, we're going to play third half. Here's the rules. You can do anything you want. That's the rules. So I had a camera going. It was all set up to film, so we were using this as research. I just left the camera rolling as all the parents drifted away and the coaches and basically all the adults. The kids mixed up. They didn't stay in their teams. They mixed together. We had a game of like a little small-sided game. They put some training tops down and played a game one end, and down the other end we had a game of Wembley going on. And we just left the video rolling, and they played for half an hour until we eventually had to go over and say, look, we've got to finish now. When we watched the video back, the comparison between the game and the third half was completely different. It's because there were no adults watching. So what do you think the kids were like when there was no adults watching? They were amazing. They were creative, imaginative, trying things, helping each other out, picking each other up, because they didn't have adult pressure and they didn't have an adult to rely on. So they coped and they did it themselves. Yeah, that's finishing with smiles on your faces. That's that free play that we know kids need to get that in the modern world they don't get enough of. So I desperately try and get you to embrace that third half. If the other coach won't do it with you, do it with your own players. Just say, look, the pitch is still available. If you want 10 minutes, go on then. We'll be over here. Just keep your distance and keep an eye on them, and you'll be amazed at what they can do. And then ask yourself why they don't do that in match day. The other bit I think we've got to cover is, and it's linked there, so you guys will get this, is the car journey home. I bet you can think of some kids in your team whose car journey home is horrible because they get the sort of review, the parents' opinion, and whilst they stare at the floor or try and like change the radio to change the subject or something like that. Yeah. So we've done stuff in the past. We've actually, I'm not saying this would work for everybody, but we've given parents questions to ask. So what was the best bit about today's game? Completely changes the feel and the conversation. Now there's going to be some who, like we said earlier, believe they're doing the right thing about giving a debrief to their child in the car. You may not be able to change that, but you might be able to start just affecting some of the other ideas. Have any of you guys played around with anything like that before?
In terms of the car journey home?
Yeah,
absolutely. Just again, mindful of time, just aligning it to the stuff I do. It's when the parents have led the half-time or the pre-match team talk on a one-to-one basis. So carry that conversation on in the car journey home. Have a chat.
Yeah, the question stuff I've used, with a lot of the teams that I work with. But again, it goes back to that, getting the commitment from the parents. There'll be certain certain kids that I've worked with where, mums and dads weren't around and they had to get the bus themselves to games. So again, that's a method that I might not use, but with the little ones, when mums, dads, grandmas, grandparents, carers come, then that's definitely something I would use. So it goes back to, again, understanding the parents, because if you go back to Vinny's point at the start, where there's already a responsibility that they've got to help with the setting up of the pitches, and then at the end of the game you're giving them a questionnaire for them to go through, they might go, actually it's a bit too much. So again, it goes back to the relationship that you've got with the parents before you start trialing things like this. But those questions that we've got are on the first slides that were sent out, so there's some examples on there that you might be able to use straight away.
I know a coach who lands something in the WhatsApp group as the kids head for the car. Yeah. So it might be a question. Parents, can you just find out what Jack thought of today's game? So straight away, it's ask Jack. Don't give your own opinion. Or can you ask them what they thought of my halftime team talk today? So straight away, he's asking them to do something on his behalf to try and change that conversation. I love David's point in the chat. Don't discuss the game and the journey home unless they start it. Brilliant. Love that.
Brilliant. Okay, guys, we're going to start wrapping up or summing up. So the final whistle's gone. We're all back home again now. And this is just a little bit for you to reflect on. If you've not seen that triangle before, it's from cognitive learning theory. And I'm not going to get too deep on that. It's 8:05 on a Sunday night. But essentially, our thoughts drive our emotions, which drive our behaviour, and around it goes again. So can we try and have positive thoughts about match day? Can we try and create the most positive environment possible? Can we try and get our parents involved in as positive a way as possible? And with that in mind, whoops, my apologies. We will soon be hitting January, and there will be a relaunch of the 21 Days of Positivity, which, if you're familiar with that, is part of the FA Respect programme, and it's aligned to the general We Only Do Positive. This stuff is based on research in terms of, first of all, it'll be launched in line with Blue Monday, the most depressing day of the year. But it's very much about coming up with ideas about how you can create the most positive practice sessions and the most positive match days. So watch out for more information on the Oxfordshire County FA website. Mike, do you want to add anything in at this point about that?
No, not really. Just encourage you to go to the Oxfordshire FA website. There is information on there around the 21 Days of Positivity, and just encourage as many coaches to get involved at your club. Brilliant.
And the FA Respect, We Only Do Positive resources are on the website as well, and they're also on the FA boot room. So I'll just give you one final top tip. I've actually printed off those little A4 posters and laminated them, and I have them on display as part of my current pre-match COVID briefing. And then I just touch upon FA Respect barrier, etc., which we've talked about a lot tonight. So there's our sum up. And just finally, there are our contact details, guys. We'd love to stay connected with you beyond this evening. I've certainly said to Jilly, if you want more information about some of the things that I try out, please don't hesitate to get in touch. The presentation will be shared with you tomorrow, Mike, is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
And obviously, as you can see from our specific roles, myself, Martin, Lawrence are going to be working in collaboration with the Oxfordshire County FA to continue to help and support you moving forward. So it's a huge thank you from us in terms of being involved with us for this lovely chat around grassroots football this evening. I can see that a few of you are checking out. So thank you again. Mart, Loz, anything from you?
Thanks for joining us. Nice way to finish the weekend, hopefully.
Yeah, thanks for joining. Good to see some familiar names coming back. Hopefully we'll see you in the flesh in the new year. So stay safe.
Yeah, thanks, Loz. And Mike, thank you for setting everything up this evening. Anything from you to wrap up?
No, just want to say a big thank you to yourselves for delivering, but also for everyone else for you logging on a Sunday evening. I'm sure you've had busy weekends and have busy weeks ahead. So thank you for your time. And I hope it's provided plenty food for thought. And if you have enjoyed and found the last two sessions useful, we are in the process of putting a plan together to deliver CPD throughout 21. So please, watch this space and we'll be in touch. So yeah, thank you for your time.
Brilliant. And we're going to stay on for a few minutes, guys. Yeah. So if I'll stop sharing my screen. So if anybody wants to stay on for an informal chat, we're going to be here for a good 10 minutes. So feel free to open up your microphones, your cameras, and come and chat away. Thank you, guys, again. Stay safe. And if we don't speak before, which we're unlikely to, unless you're from Banbury, have a great Christmas and festive season. Take care. Bye for now.
Merry Christmas, everybody.